Hello, everyone. Welcome and thanks for joining our presentation, PR, Social Media and Websites, Building the Foundation of the House of Development. House of Development is a concept developed by Cogio to illustrate the building blocks of a successful organization and explain why development is so crucial to fundraising, recruiting, and achieving your organization's goals. Before we dive too far in, I'm going to go over some housekeeping things. I'm Jen Wells from TAP Network, and I'll be moderating and introducing our expert speakers. We'll be taking questions at the end. If you're viewing through desktop, you can submit questions through the chat option in the GoToWebinar interface. And people who have dialed in with their phones are not able to submit questions, but they are more than welcome to contact us after the presentation. Speaking today, we have Rob Kusel, the Managing Director of Cogio. Rob provides organizational advice and development services to nonprofits to optimize their efficiency and long-term sustainability. Rob has worked with organizations such as Essex and Drake's Fundraising Council, Blue Oak School, Stanford University, and his own alma mater, Williams College, among others. Second, we have Joe DiGiovanni, co-founder of TAP Network. Joe has a passion for supporting purpose-driven organizations and nonprofits seeking to accelerate their growth and social impact. Joe's experience includes the Oprah Winfrey Network, WPP, Boys and Girls Club, AARP, and Gray Healthcare. Now that you know who we all are, I'm going to hand it off to Rob.
Thank you, Jen. And thank you everybody for joining. So today we're going to focus on PR, social media, and websites, and really understanding how to drive traffic and keep relationships going across the entire spectrum of development. So we're going to move on, Jen, to the next slide. Jen just gave you an overview of the two companies involved. So yeah, today, as I mentioned, the focus will be on anything to do with publicizing your nonprofit and marketing. I want to say this, and this is why TAP is very, very relevant. This work 25, 30 years ago was difficult and very expensive because everything was print and mail. And so communicating with donors and members was a very costly initiative. Today, that cost is drastically reduced. And so if you're not leveraging expertise across how to best leverage, I'm using that word a lot, but it's an important word, all aspects digital and social media, you really need to consider a budget line for that. So the next slide, give you some context. You have a house, but your house is nothing without a healthy garden. And the garden is really a euphemism for cultivating and developing donors. So if you're going to have a really strong overall development, aka fundraising ecosystem, this will be an important component of it. So you're going to learn how to be a great gardener today and really laying the foundation for your organization's future. And then Joe's going to touch heavily on clean, organized data and systems, really help to fuel the garden. Now the next slide. Here you can see specifically which area of the House of Development we'll be discussing today. And the elements are PR, website, management, social media, e-newsletters, and a check-in on annual reports. The next slide. Joe's going to touch on this because it's really links to TAP.
Thanks, Rob. Hi, it's Joe DiGiovanni with TAP. We're excited to partner with Cogio in the House of Development. As you see, that little entranceway that we just saw is really the curb appeal in terms of driving credibility for your website, social media, email marketing, content marketing, all these things, as Rob mentioned, weren't really even available not too long ago, 10, 15 years ago. And until recently, you couldn't even integrate these. So even to have all these pieces work together, you would need full teams to manage social media, manage your content marketing, write your blogs, and none of it was connected. So what's exciting now is not just the curb appeal, but all the pipes and the foundation of the house or their website and connecting all these pieces. One example of a platform that does this, that powers the fundraising house per se, is HubSpot. HubSpot's a marketing automation platform. There's others, Marketo. There's some platforms that are automated just for social media, some for developing content. But the goal really is to find a platform that fits your needs, so you can do all these things. You can drive your email nurturing, your content, social, everything, and have all these pieces work together to really drive your fundraising efforts. And we'll go through today how these can be integrated together so you can optimize best practices.
So the next slide, as you can see, is the pie chart, and it gives you the data. It's fairly recent in terms of how the giving is divvied up. 5% corporation, so it's not as big as people think. 9% bequests, and down the road we'll have a planned giving webinar. And if you're not in the habit of marketing bequests, you need to start right now because the baby boomers are turning. And then 16% and growing foundations, and then a whopping 70%, nearly 3/4 from individuals. And we'll do specific breakdowns when we talk about annual giving and major gifts in future presentations. The next slide really is, what does gardening have to do with fundraising? So the House of Development, Smart House of Development's garden, represents cultivating potential donors and stewarding potential donors through storytelling and information dissemination. Right? So you've got a story. Every 501c3 is making an impact in its community, and therefore that story must be told. And there are many ways it can be easily told in today's digital era. What does it do? Good storytelling nurtures community and supporter excitement and passion, so it heightens their affinity for the organization over time. And it satisfies communication and administration expectations in the digital era. The key is to not over-communicate, but also to not under-communicate. The next slide is really interesting because 20 years ago, was really the onset of the beginning of online transactions. And Joe's going to touch on each of the type of donor, the millennial, the Gen X, and the baby boomers, on how they give online. So go ahead, Joe.
Thanks, Rob. Yes, one of the most effective ways to break out the noise is really creating segmentation in your communications. Different age groups respond to different messaging and on different platforms. So if you're marketing automation, you're really able to differentiate amongst your various audiences and bring out personas and workflows for each one. So the most important thing to remember is before moving forward with your giving strategy, it's not that everyone should be receiving the same message. Your organization should be delivering the appropriate year-end appeal or annual event or ongoing campaign that really resonates with the donor on a personal level. If you look at millennials, around ages 22, 36, they're mostly likely to donate via mobile. They watch campaign videos. YouTube is very important. They prefer to give via crowdfunding, which is super popular on Facebook. And these supporters really respond to text, and they're actively involved in social media. You can't really make a dent with targeting millennials unless you're on these platforms. And Generation X, they're more likely to fundraise on behalf of your organizations, make a pledge, and volunteer, going beyond just the fundraising. And these supporters respond to email, phone calls, and texts, but stay up to date through social feed and social trends. And then the baby boomers, they're more likely to make recurring gifts, which is, again, where marketing automation comes in, because we're able to tag them and continue to communicate with them to continue to fundraise, but also have the ability for them to click once and get on a campaign where they're giving each month, or it auto recurs every year. And they're really the mainstream adopters of text message and social media, so you can definitely reach them there as well. And even the greatest generation, ages 67, 70 and up, they're more likely to respond to direct mail and by check. But more and more, we're seeing that wealthy seniors are much more likely to own smartphones, so they'll be making payments right through their credit card. So as Rob mentioned, the targeting these different audiences is the trend is moving more and more towards digital payments, making sure your website's mobile optimized, and setting the campaigns and the content specifically for each one of these audiences is really the best route to go. And that starts with building your website with the progressive personalization and technology, so you recognize who these folks are, and then the campaigns can follow.
That's great. Next slide. Why is PR, public relations, important? Several reasons. It's excellent stewardship for current donors. Invariably, it will attract new donors. It will develop new donors into the funnel, and it increases your community relevance. And the next slide demonstrates that, ironically, there are natural systems that many 501c3s leverage, where public relations is really just an extension and really part of what happens at any key event, any special projects, one-off projects that occur in a certain community or in a new community that you're trying to expand your services, particularly if you're a social service group. And then strategic partnerships obviously also enhance your ability to demonstrate your strength in the community. The next slide is an example of how a Cogeo client, in this case, Rock the Casa, leverages PR in a really just dynamic way across multiple platforms. So Rock the Casa is an annual rock and roll show in the East Bay, Contra Costa County in California, in Northern California. And it's a nonprofit that was started by Dan Ashley, who is a lead broadcaster in San Francisco for Channel 7 ABC News. And Dan endorses two 501c3s, among others. One is court-appointed special advocates, CASA, in that area, and another is a camp for young children who are economically disadvantaged. So really just foster children who need court-appointed special advocates, and then disadvantaged children who are being sent off to a summer camp every summer of that age. So Dan identified two groups that were going to benefit from this, and each year he attracts a rock and roll band. And some have been REO Speedwagon, Cheap Trick, Melissa Etheridge, Patti LaBelle, and others. Patti LaBelle was this year and was wildly successful. So what were the leverages that he had? Well, he works at ABC, therefore he got some free advertising from ABC 7. He engaged Jablo, which is a local magazine for Mount Diablo and that surrounding area. He got some free advertising from them, quid pro quo. Because of his relationships, and he was able to get pre-show advertising at all Regal movie theaters in the Bay Area for a week or 2 week run. I can't remember exactly, but it's substantial. He also was able to secure local newspaper advertising. We did with him quite a bit of event sponsor e-blasting into their communities. heavy on social media advertising, given his Facebook presence. He's got a lot of followers, which has really enhanced the Rock DeCasa brand. So we've essentially merged the two brands, Dan Ashley, Rock DeCasa, in the context of this 501c3. And then obviously each year he benefits from the group, which is going to perform that year and their following as well. You know who's not on the list is Jimmy Buffett, which was a huge success. And then if you click on the case statement, you can see how he makes the case. And so there's Dan. He's got a lot of charisma, and he's actually a very funny guy. And if you scroll down, Jen, just to give our audience a sense of, again, it presents what the case is about. And then just keep scrolling, Jen. I just want to just show them that it's just very similar to the one we saw last week or last month. There's Dan with the superstar and some quotes, some pictures from past shows. Another quote, testimony. Now, these are the executive director from one of the nonprofits that benefits, and so she's giving a benefit statement. And you can see the quilts and pillows from the summer camp. Let's keep moving. So a lot of nice pictures. Again, there's the camp that benefits. Truly demonstrates to the donors that Camp Concord, in this case, is the one benefiting. And keep scrolling down. There again, there's Eddie Money, who also played, really successful. Anyway, you get the sense. Let's keep moving. Go to the next slide. And there's Dan. Thanks, Jen. Okay, Joe's going to touch on why websites are critical, not just important, they're critical.
Thanks, Ron. Yeah, we all know, we all have websites, but it's more than just a brochure nowadays. Your website is mobile and it's reaching people right when they're most passionate about their causes, when they're searching for information related to your cause and your mission. So you need to have everything at their fingertips to donate, to volunteer, to engage. And that's why all these different pieces need to be connected. So very successful websites, folks we have worked with, from AARP to Boys and Girls Club, even TechSoup is a client of ours. The ability to have all these pieces tied together, especially around a CRM, your customer relationship management system, all needs to be packaged into your website. Jen, if you go to the next slide, yeah, it really serves as a central hub of communication. Inbound wise, you're attracting folks into your website, and then outbound, it serves as a way to reach them and to continue an engagement. And if you look at the trends from websites, the organic traffic now is over half, it's 56%. That means that if you're generating fresh content and people are searching for your cause, or they're interested in something related to your cause, Habitat for Humanity, things of that nature. 56% of people actually get to your website through Google search. And if you're not creating fresh content, you're going to lose that audience. Direct traffic, that goes back to what Rob was speaking about. That's really PR. It's people who have brand recognition of your nonprofit. They go into Google and they type the address or the name of your nonprofit right in their browser. So PR continues to be powerful. It's the second most strongest traffic driver. And then referral. This goes back to SEO and search engine optimization, is creating partnerships, as Rob mentioned earlier, where you have different organizations that may be similar to yours. It could be some of your corporate partners. They're really working hard so they link back to your site. Over 10% of your traffic can come from referral, and that also feeds your organic as well. And paid search, a lot of nonprofits use Google Ads. You get a free grant through TechSoup to do that, and 10% of the traffic comes through there. Social media, in terms of driving traffic to a website, is only 3%, but we'll get into the details later of how powerful social media is on their own. A few years ago, you couldn't donate and do a lot of things you could do now on social. So we'll dig into that a little deeper. And email Again, kind of even lower than social, 1%, but that 1% is, you're using your email to really keep folks engaged and updated on your nonprofit. So then when it does come time to ask for that donation, you can reach out by phone, you can reach out through social, use all these different channels. So holistically, having all these pieces work together and having a content management system on the back end, so you know how your users are coming into your website, what content's attracting them, and putting them on specific drip campaigns and messaging can really drive and amplify the ROI and the conversion rate across all these different channels. Next slide, thank you.
So I'll touch
Rob,
on this slide. You want me to touch on it, and then you can add?
Sure.
Essentially, the great thing about this landing page is it gives a lot of relevant data, and the eye candy, the pictures, really represents exactly what this 501c3 is about. And then the bonus, if you would like, is the happiness in this person's face, and it really captures the essence of charity water. And so the data as well, very specific. 1 in 10 people lack access. We're on a mission to change that. Here's how. Very simple. Then they demonstrate immediately their strength with 100% of donation and local partners, which brings in credibility. So that's all I'll say, Joe. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, Charity Water is a great case study, and going beyond that, just using best practices. We know from research now that there's that identifiable victim effect. And that's one of the most important psychological concepts for fundraisers to understand. And research shows that people are more likely to donate to a cause where they're presented with a single identifiable, in this case, victim or audience, where they're presented within that you're making an individual impact instead of having this psychic numbing where you're showing thousands and millions of people, which funders kind of, when people go to donate, they'll start to drown that out as they think that, well, I can't make an impact on such a large number. So as you go through Charity Water's site, you'll see how they really make a connection, tell a story, and you feel as if you're helping specific people and making a big difference. So great best practices here. Another case study is the Delaware Center for Health Innovation. This is a unique organization. They're a backbone organization, and as we've seen over the last few years, backbone organizations are really starting to grow, where these big grants and big fundraisers are not donating to specific nonprofits as much as before, but they're donating the partnerships of nonprofits, hence the forming of a backbone organization. In this case, the Delaware Center for Health Innovation, their goal was to raise money for the SIM grant, which was to drive universal health care when that became into law, and also for practice transformation. So you can imagine on a statewide level, you have different committees. You were targeting and organizing all the physicians in the state, all the different nonprofits, the workforce, the universities, and the consumers, and then the communities. So one organization literally having to use their website to communicate amongst all these stakeholders. And what was really important here is to get that grant over $100 million, they had to showcase that they had the technology to manage and communicate amongst all these different members. Going back to the House and found, the House effect is, from a curb appeal standpoint, it was showing off the fact that we could actually manage it and having a website to do so. So if you go to Delaware Center of Health Innovation's website, you'll see how it's set up as a communication portal. And then secondly, it was additional grant money would come in as Delaware Center for Health Innovation helped support the organizations that were part of that alliance. So it was identifying community nonprofits that were really dedicated to the social determinants of health and helping them raise awareness. And as a capacity builder, as we raise more awareness and impact with the partner organizations, then additional grant money came through, $2 to $4 million at a clip. So again, using the website as the foundation for the house of fundraising, basically to drive all this integration and impact, but then not just for themselves, but to support their partner sites. And as the partner sites got grants and fundraising, it would roll through the backbone organization. So again, integrating all the different platforms, social media, email, content marketing, CRM, and really using it, in this case, to communicate among stakeholders, to give credibility to the grantees, but then also to make an impact in the community and reaching out. Why is social media so important? So we can just we can look at a few facts here, but social media is increasingly becoming more and more influential in terms of reaching audiences. It's cost effective. There's low barriers to access. If you look at just the specific channels out there, a lot of the stats are really impressive. Like for Facebook, for example, 18% of donors worldwide have given through Facebook fundraising tools. So you may not even have to go to the website. You can donate directly through Facebook. And more than 29% of mobile donation traffic on Giving Tuesday came from Facebook. 84% of Facebook users share to show their support for cause and highlight issues that are important to them. So if someone's really interested in a cause, Facebook is the #1 place where they're going to show their support, which is very important. If you look at YouTube, going back to what we discussed earlier, millennials are on YouTube 8 to 10 times. 8 out of 10 millennials are on YouTube. And 50% of people who watch nonprofit videos go to make a donation. So if you really want to make an impact and connect and tell a story and have that user feel as if they're making an impact, YouTube's the way to go. You can have your video on YouTube. You can import the YouTube video into your website. You can share YouTube videos through your social media, but it really should be part of your social media marketing mix. Twitter, for example, 36% of online adults are on Twitter. 55% of people who engage with nonprofits on Twitter end up taking some sort of action. So the ability to get your message across on Twitter, to tap into different hashtags that are related to your cause, to expand your reach, and giving people a call to action on Twitter is a great way to drive them. You can drive them back to your Facebook page to make a donation, drive them back to your website to donate, or even just to get them to volunteer. As we know, people are more likely to give after they volunteer, and you could set up that whole workflow just based on the social media channel you're using. Instagram, as everyone knows, is blowing up. 30% of nonprofits use Instagram to raise money and awareness. 75% of Instagram users take action and will visit a website to make a purchase or a donation. So that's increasingly becoming one of the most powerful platforms out there. Pinterest is starting to decline a bit. Snapchat is almost tripled in the last 3 years. And the people who are daily Snapchat users are using it 20 to 30 times a day. So if you want to really work on instant gratification and get people to donate, Snapchat is a nice way to go about that as well. So unlimited opportunities. You can donate directly through social media, and it's going to continue to be one of the most powerful platforms to drive donations. And then once they do that, you can capture all their information on your website. So as these people are browsing the web, visiting CNN, visiting any website, you can retarget them through advertising. But that really initial touch point comes through social media.
Right. So case study. This is an example of really good PR, really good execution on the part of the actual activity, which was the Ice Bucket Challenge. And this 501c3 is ALS Foundation, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. And so the aim was to get as many people as possible to get their networks to donate to them in aggregate for ALS if they in fact were to perform this act, which is an Ice Bucket Challenge. And it was hugely successful. They got many superstars engaged, a lot of YouTube airtime, all the networks picked up on it. So the execution per se was great, and they certainly raised a lot of money in a short amount of time. But in a long-term sense, it was a complete failure because ALS did not ramp up resources to properly stewardship all these newly acquired donors and their networks for the future. So there was no post-event capitalization to speak of. And therefore, while a near-term success, as we analyze this, we saw a long-term failure. So that's what this is. Joe, you want to touch on the next one?
Yeah. So thanks, Rob. This next case study is on the city of Wilmington. The nonprofit is CityFest, which is a nonprofit that's associated with the city, but funded from multiple organizations. Quick history here is city of Wilmington, 75,000 people in population. 5 years ago, Newsweek did an article that claimed Wilmington, Delaware, was the most unsafe city in the United States. So being a resident of Wilmington and working with the government, the goal really was to really drive economic development in the city and raise funds to change the conversation around the city, attract millennials into the city, have businesses reinvest here. So the first thing that would happen was, how do we position the city of Wilmington as a smart city, create a communications hub that will attract investors who want to get behind the city, pool their dollars to create a campaign that will really target the reinvestment into the city and just the whole branding of the city as well. So this was a really unique case in terms of fundraising. So we developed a web portal and invested in the storytelling pieces we discussed earlier, creating a really powerful video and creating a brand called Wilm Love, where you can go and see great video and footage and stories about the city. Then we created another portal called Wilm Today, which was a news resource really capturing all the positive news that was going on in the city and connecting those two websites together. And then creating social media campaigns that were associated with it. Hashtag It's Time, which really was powerful, and getting people in Wilmington to say, hey, it's time. We want to bond together and get behind the city and help drive positive news and reinvest in the city and show people what a great town that they live in. Or it's time for the millennial in Seattle to get off their couch and come to Wilmington because it's a great city to work, live, and play. Really, really amazing platform where we could do that. So that worked, and we raised over $2 million from the local corporations to invest in this. So by creating the website and putting a small investment into doing that first phase, it raised over $2 million. And then we used that $2 million to continue to drive campaigns that really showcased the city and got people to, we did surveys locally, regionally, and nationally about the city, ran the campaign, improved the perception of the city over 20-30% in multiple different categories. So by capturing all that information on the website, we were able to go back with the city to get further investment. And now there's multiple offshoots from this. There's a whole workforce development initiative. There is a community reinvestment initiative, a safety initiative. So over $10 million now has come into the city through this collective arrangement and platform that was created. So it's powered by HubSpot, so all the communications get funneled through there. And then we use a database called Airtable. So all the different organizations within the city, we have formed alliances with the arts and cultural groups, with the nonprofits, with the government and corporations. So on the left-hand side of this slide, you see a snapshot of it, but basically enables all these different organizations to upload photos, stories, articles around different themes and trends.
Yeah, I'm up here. I'm on a call.
And what's powerful about that is anyone who wants to write a great article around food in Wilmington or foodies can come to this one portal, all the content's there, and they could pull it and create an article. And this was great, going back to Rob's earlier point about PR. So if another city or Newsweek or anyone wanted to write an article about Wilmington, they could come to this one portal and pull all this content. So we started getting great write-ups through the city of Baltimore, their local news, Philadelphia. So really great story, success story, and a way to raise money, to capitalize upon that raise and continue to use communications to rally the city, the corporations, to promote all the amazing things that are happening here. So just a quick case study there. And yeah, why is email important? Email is, like we said, it's a way to really communicate with your stakeholders, and then for people who opt in to different things that you're doing in your nonprofit. So going back to the website, what you could do through a platform like HubSpot and Marketo is you can have different channels. If you're the Boys and Girls Club and you have different news channels, one could be geared towards sports, another one could be towards education. Some Boys and Girls Clubs we're partnering with are now doing yoga and mindfulness. So you have these different categories on your website. Instead of having to create a new email every month, you can have folks opt in for email alerts. So every time you post a blog within a certain category, those folks who've opted in to receive news about Boys and Girls Club sports, they'll get an alert in their email driving folks to the website. So just one example, but through marketing automation, you can save so much time and money, not having to create these very elaborate emails, and it can be automated and personalized. And as you do that, you could start to pepper in different calls to action, whether it's getting people to volunteer or for fundraising. Here's a few stats. It depends on how specific your email is. You want to get it around a 95% delivery rate. So, 5% bounce. People are always changing jobs, so that's normal. And your open rate, that really varies. It depends on how specific your message is and your call to action for your click-through rate. So what we generally do is, if we're sending out an email to, from one of our nonprofit clients, we'll A/B test it, where we'll have different subject lines and different bodies of copy. So it's really A, B, C, D, if you want to look at it that way. And if we have 1,000 people in one of our nonprofits database, we'll send it out to 100 and maybe 25 different emails to those 100 folks, see which ones convert best, and then for the remaining 900, use that subject line. So a lot of different ways you can test before you just spray and pray and just throw a massive email out. And to get folks to really convert, that's where you take a deeper dive and look at the call to action. What's your message to get people to convert, to come to your website, or to donate directly from that email. So it's good to have these averages out there and really to look at how you're performing and where you can improve. And if you can improve 10%, along the path here, you can almost double your conversion rate at the end of the day. So one last piece is Make sure that when you do send an email that it's mobile ready, mobile optimized, because half of the folks out there who are reading email are getting it on their phone. So always be aware of your numbers is the takeaway here, and you can always improve them.
Thanks, Joe. A couple more thoughts on email specifically as it relates to maintaining the relationship and also as it relates to stewardship. So people will ask us, how should we communicate with our donors? And there's one answer. It should be donor-centric, which is to say, if you know, and particularly with major donors, right? If you know a major donor prefers direct mail or even a handwritten note, that's the way you should. If you know that they don't do email or they do not text, then know that. If they tell you they only communicate by text, and I've heard this, then you've got to figure out a way to honor that. But obviously email, to Joe's point, has become the de facto solution, which is a great thing because it's so efficient. On the stewardship end, this is one important point. We ask the question because many transactions, as Joe pointed out, increasingly are happening online. And the transaction engine will generate, most likely, an automatic thank you email that has all of the federal components and requirements by law. So it can be used, for tax purposes. And so our clients say, well, is that enough, the email? And the answer is no. You should try and add a few old school, traditional mechanisms as well. So having other board members or other donors or thank that person, as well as maybe a program officer or whomever from your group. So try and do more than just email. The next slide is a really good case study of how a client is leveraging email systematically. This is a San Francisco Elite Soccer Academy for elite players, boys and girls, in the city of San Francisco. And this particular appeal, these two slides we used at a presentation at the National Youth Soccer Convention every year. We give a couple of presentations. So this is written by Joe Dugan. So the lower slide is the first part of the letter, and then the upper portion is the end of the letter. So let's look at the language. Very specific, to Joe's point, very specific content and call to action. So this is in May of 2018, and he's saying, hey, our fiscal year ends in 2 months. And we're on a mission to hit our raising the game goal of 175,000. And we've raised 113 plus to date and need your help to achieve the objective. Then Joe provides really good news in terms of the number of teams for the fall, which has increased 50% from the previous fall. And then the third paragraph focuses on the gap that the club spends in addition to fees per player. And the gap is $600 on average per player, which is why they're doing this campaign, to ensure that anybody who is capable but not necessarily financially capable should be playing for this club. And then the last piece, which is the last page on the left, great language, please consider a donation and make a difference in the lives of the kids we serve. And by the way, they've been doing this now under our guidance for several years, and they have over 25% of the parent bases are active donors, which is really a great number. Joe's going to talk about the next case study. The next slide.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, so TechSoup, a lot of you may know TechSoup. 80% of nonprofits use TechSoup for validation services and to get free or discounted software from Microsoft, Adobe, and others. What we've done with TechSoup was use marketing automation to solve a lot of problems in terms of email or challenges they had. They're in over 200 countries. Their products are presented in over 8 different languages. So you can imagine the task ahead of them for all the emails that they would be sending out to all these different countries, all these different nonprofits who all have different needs, from nonprofits that are just getting started, they got validated, and now they're about to build their first Wix website, to $100 million nonprofits that are cruising along. So what we did here was we put TechSoup on HubSpot, which enabled us to create these marketing templates for their emails. So it automatically went into the CRM. It recognized their name, their organization, and it would put them in a certain path in terms of the content. So if it was, a discount on GrantStation, or how to have your Microsoft Office get integrated into the cloud, all these great services they do, it would be personalized on the email based on the activity of the folks in the CRM. Even going beyond that, it would recognize, if someone came to TechSoup, it would recognize what country they came from, and automatically we had these different emails templated out in all the different languages. So it recognized where they came from, what language they spoke, and the email would be sent out in that language as well. So it wound up saving over 10x time and cost in terms of sending out the emails. And we've seen the ROI through the conversion rates double or triple in the emails that they were sending out. Double or triple meaning the revenue generated into TechSoup's nonprofit through the purchase of the different services that they had. So really great platform, again, where you can automate what you're doing, save staff time, and target your audiences, and get as granular as the time, the message, the language, the country, all that being done and automated. And if you want to learn more about it, if you go to TechSoup and click on courses, we've created an entire course series on email marketing for nonprofits. And you can take a look at that and get some further resources there.
Thanks, Joe. It is very powerful. I will second that, having known TechSoup for a long time. Now, the next slide is an important slide, because annual reports historically played an important role as an external-facing document, particularly for donors and foundations trying to understand the health of the nonprofit, 501c3. And it was not unusual 30 years ago, 25 years ago, 20 years ago to do a print, to do an annual report print, a mass mailer, get them out, very costly. That paradigm has shifted completely. What we're seeing today are annual reports that are listing donors online. So we're still seeing some of that. We're also seeing some printed annual reports that are doing more than just donor listings, though. They're almost behaving like a case statement, although not officially a case statement. But for the most part, because it's no longer mandatory to do by law, we're seeing annual reports disappear, which is neutral. Why? Well, because at the turn of the century, GuideStar.org, which was created by Buzz and his people, came on the scene. And if you're not familiar with GuideStar, it's a very important player in the 501c3 seed. They just merged with the Foundation Center in the last 18 months, and are critically important in that they allow members to access 1090 forms and really understand the current operational health and financial reality at a 501c3. So GuideStar has become the de facto resource for nonprofits foundations evaluating nonprofits, corporations making decisions, as well as consulting firms, and on and on. So Joe is now going to talk about smart home integration.
Thanks, Rob. So, smart home integration is going back to kind of what we originally started speaking about here, is what's appropriate for technology at the current stage of your nonprofit. If you're just starting out and you might be on a Wix or Squarespace website, that's fine. And you may be just pushing your social media out through Facebook and Twitter individually. And as you grow, you can scale and look at more automated platforms, such as HubSpot. But even before you get to HubSpot, you might want to use Sprout or Hootsuite just to organize all your social media. Or you may want to look at a more robust content management platform such as Airtable, so you have all your content in one spot. And as your organization grows, you can integrate all those pieces together. And then finally, adding a CRM. There's a lot of different CRMs you can use. There's Blackball. You can plug in certain donation platforms like GoFundMe, have CRM integrated into them. Or you can use something like Marketo, which integrates everything. At the end of the day, it really depends on your capacity and whether you want to manage all these different pieces by your organization or outsource pieces of them. A lot of our nonprofits just outsource the marketing, operations, and technology. So setting up all those platforms, integrating them, and the workflows, and the nonprofit will create all the content, create the photos, the graphics, but really need a system to optimize and integrate them together to increase their funding. So it depends on where you're at, and kind of what we do is talk to the nonprofits and understand where and how they want to grow, where they have bandwidth, where they don't, and looking really at the roles and responsibilities of each individual so we can connect them. In a lot of cases, nonprofits, you'll have people working on development and other folks driving marketing, and connecting those two together. We've worked with Cogeo for a couple of years now, and it's amazing to see how, in a similar vein, where they come in and really help take over or consult on the fundraising side, and how that integrates into the capacity building and the marketing automation to support it. So each nonprofit's a little different, but as you grow and integrate and automate, you'll see your fundraising efforts begin to accelerate. And in terms of acceleration, it really comes down to setting up your funnel. So this is kind of a recap of everything we've talked today, but on your website, you want to attract people into your garden. So you need blogs that drives SEO, search engine optimization. You're using specific keywords that your potential donors and funders will be searching for, and you're using social media to get people aware of your nonprofit and getting them to your website, so you have these visitors. And then the next stage of your growth is really having forms and calls to action for people to fill out those forms, and some really robust and rich content to capture them. So they'll download it, or they'll register for an event, and you can capture. And once you capture people's contact information and they opt in, that funnels into your CRM. And once you have a database, then you can really start working your emails and creating workflows. So if someone, you might, one of your followers or fans may be interested in joining a race that you're having, and then maybe attending a big gala event, and then volunteering. And then after they volunteer, your content and the workflow gets more geared towards individual donations. And if they work for a certain big, large corporation, you'll be able to recognize that as well, and then pass that lead off to your development folks, or collaborating with teams such as Cogeo to go after the larger funders. But again, it's having all these systems set up on the back end, real foundation of the house, and on the front end in the garden to be able to communicate and reach out to the community, and then set up these campaigns so you're nurturing people in the entire time, so they're not just strangers or visitors, they become strong advocates of your nonprofit, and measuring that and reporting all this information back. And as Rob was saying, it's not just your annual report, but it's if you can collect all this data and show the reach and impact that you're making, which you can capture on the back end of your website, that's going to drive more funders. That's what really helped for the Delaware Center for Health Innovation when they need to get more funders to show that they are making an impact in the health outcomes of the community, or the perception of the city of Wilmington and the increase in jobs, and how we tied that back to the campaigns. So pulling all these pieces together, integrating them, automating them, tweaking them as you go along, and really measuring it and capturing that information and leveraging it to drive your fundraising efforts, whether it's on a large corporate scale, from corporate social responsibility, having the data you need to get the grant money you're seeking, or to really connect with individual donors and funders. It's important to have these campaigns fleshed out and then working them with your team and connecting all the dots. So hope that was helpful and tied everything together there. And we'll continue this conversation next month.
So that concludes our presentation for the day. We do have a few minutes left and we have some questions from our audience, so we're going to go through those. The first question is actually an easy one and I will answer it. Someone asked if we'll be receiving the slide deck after the webinar, and the answer is yes. We will be sending out a link to view the videos and also the slides. Questions for Rob and Joe. As a small nonprofit, what percentage of our, our resources should we allocate to this part of development?
That's hard to answer without an audit. So what you should do is schedule a call with me. You'll hear from Jen toward the end of this call how that's possible, because we would need to ask you a few questions in order to give you a data-driven answer. Joe, you want to add anything?
No, I think the best thing to do is yeah, I think hooking up with Rob. We can support that conversation as well. Take a look at your analytics if you have any through Google to get an idea of at least the traffic and flow of your website and your social, and then collaboratively we can come up with a couple different solutions.
Okay, next question. What tools do you use for social media and email?
Sure. Jen, do you want to cover that one?
Oh, sure. So there's so many that it's hard to even get started, but I'll tell you my favorite social media scheduling tool is SmarterQueue. Because it allows you to do posts, it has some basic analytics, and you can do things like run evergreen posts where you have maybe 12 different posts, and when they get to the end of that 12, they'll kind of recycle and start over. So not every single thing that you post on your social media networks needs to be its own unique individual thing. Like some things are genuinely useful, like tips or reminders about important dates, things like that, or like asking people to donate. You don't need to rephrase that a completely new way every time you do it. So evergreen posts are really useful for that. So that's my favorite for social media. For creating graphics for social, if you don't have the Adobe suite like I do, then Canva is a really great free tool for making graphics. It will resize it for you. It will give you the dimensions for the different social networks, so you don't have to look that up on your own. It's really simple. And then an easy way to get started with email is maybe MailChimp. That's been the simplest user interface that I've found. Although Joe would probably say if you want to tie all these things together, then HubSpot is our favorite tool for that, because it lets you do everything in one place, and it also has the CRM part to manage your customers, or in this case, donors. Did you want to add anything, Joe, or did I cover it?
No, I think that's great. There's, if you're really big into reports and graphics, I think Sprout Social is a nice social media platform. It has a really powerful reporting engine. Some cases that's very important for investors. We've used Hootsuite before, which is these are pay for services, but that's a nice platform too. It depends. Some of these are free and some are minimal dollars per month. So again, if you wanted us to take a look at what you're using now and then offer some recommendations, just feel free to reach out and we'll do a quick audit for you.
All right, next question. And actually this might be the last one because we have 1 minute left. How often should you communicate to your potential donors?
I'll start, Joe, and you can add. It really depends what level donor they are. But if they're a major donor to your organization, there's a system called Moves Management. Moves as in make a move management. And the idea is to put a move on a major donor at a rate of about 1 a quarter. And a move can be anything like sending a VIP email, inviting them to a special event, even if they don't attend. Just being very overt, having coffee with the executive director, meeting with the director of development if you've got one, or with a board member. So they're, at a minimum, that. It can't be just thanking them after they made their gift and then you go away because other nonprofits, any of our clients, for example, are aggressively doing moves management. And it's what happens between the cycle of giving from year to year. So whether the entity who's giving is a foundation, a high net worth individual, or a business, practice the art of moves management. And when we do the module on major gifts in the House of Development, moves management will be a big part of that. And we'll go into great detail about best stewardship practices. Joe, what do you want to add?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. I think that's really great advice. It's dependent on the type of funder you're looking at, and going beyond email, you can do it on social as well. So we always, if we do have a big event, we have these prospective funders show up. Is there a way to recognize them in an email that drives people to a website where they can see the individual donors or funders, where they recognize through a slideshow, or you recognizing the organization that made that donation, by using hashtags, or just giving a call out to that corporation or that individual. It depends. Some individuals want anonymity, so you may not want to publish it on social, but if it's a larger corporation and part of the reason they're funding you is because they want the recognition, then social is a great way to do it. And again, if you have an automation platform set up in the back end, you will know and learn the amount of times that these folks want you to reach out to them. If they always give at the end of the year because of from a tax standpoint, then you could set up your emails to go and target that. Some donors just give around Giving Tuesday, especially millennials, so you might want to really target those prospective folks there and set up those workflows. But I know Rob will get into more depth with this in our next our webinar next month. And again, if you want to reach out to Rob or I, just give us a shout and we can talk you through some of that too.
Okay, so we are out of time. I am going to, one of our viewers gave us a small correction. She says when Rob was referencing the IRS forms, it should have been 990, not 1090. That's not my area of expertise, so I'll leave it up to. Okay.
She's right. Thank you for the edit. Absolutely right.
Okay, so thank you for getting the misspeak. And then finishing up our wrap up. Again, thank you to everyone for attending, and thank you for the presentation, Rob and Joe. We are sending a couple of follow-ups. Like I said, we will be sending links to view the videos. There's this one and then the previous webinar, and each month as we do new sessions, they'll be added to that library as well. We'll be sending out a survey. We really do appreciate your feedback. It helps us improve these presentations each time. So if you have a few minutes, please fill that out. And then we'll also be sending out information for the next webinar. So look for those emails in your inbox. And thank you everyone again for attending. We hope this was helpful and enjoy the rest of your week.